Hi, I'm Cheri. I'm a designer at artbeads.com, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the most basic hardware or findings that you would use for making jewelry. I've learned that some of that can be pretty intimidating if you don't understand what they are and how they're used, but if you just master a few of the very basics, you can make just almost anything. So we've put together some starter sets that will help you learn how to do some of these basic techniques and use some of these special findings. In this particular set, we have the eye pin. This comes in a variety of different wire thicknesses and lengths, and it has the loop on the end, or the eye. Then we have the head pin. And again, this comes in the different wire thicknesses, and it has a little head on the end, and that's to keep beads from falling off. And then we have the jump ring. And the jump rings come in all different sizes and wire gauges and diameters and materials. And these are used in almost anything that you're going to put together. It's really the little workhorse of jewelry making. And then in this particular case, we're going to show you how to use these by making a pair of earrings. And so these are some basic ear wires, and they have a loop that opens up, and you can hook your earring onto the ear wire. And then we have the little rubber clutch that you can slide on the ear wire to keep the wire in your ears. And then we have some beautiful Swarovski crystals in some really wonderful, elegant colors that you can use to experiment with. In order to use these findings and put the earrings together, you need some basic tools. We have another starter set that has the very basics. In this set, we have a pair of crimping pliers, a pair of side cutters, 2 pair of chain nose pliers, and a pair of round nose pliers. And I'm going to use 4 of these 5 to put these earrings together, and I'll explain the tools as I handle them. Okay, so to start, we're going to make this beautiful pair of dangle earrings. And within this pair of earrings, we're going to use the head pin, the eye pin, the ear wire, and then we've got some really pretty pearls and crystals that we're going to add to make the earring. I'm going to start with the head pin, and I'm going to slide one of my crystals down to the end. And you can see that the little head holds the bead on. And then one of my pearls. And I want this to be a little dangle, so I'm going to, I want to put a loop on the end, and in this case I'm going to make a simple loop. To do that, I like to push the edge of the wire over the top of my fingernail, but to an angle, but you can do that with a pair of pliers if that's more comfortable for you. The main thing is just to get this nice angle at the top of the bead that you have. Then I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and these have 2 mandrels. They're both round and tapered, and if you place your wire underneath your angle, if you place it closer to the tip, it's going to make a smaller loop at the top of your bead. If you slide that in up here, then it's going to make a large loop. And so you decide just how large that loop is that you want for your particular project, and then position the pliers, and then grasp them firm. You don't want to squeeze so tight that you dent the metal that you're working with, but you want a firm grip. And then I just push that wire over the top of that mandrel until it bumps into the bead and I can't go any further. Then I hold on to the beads and I loosen up on the grip, and I just turn the pliers in my hand until this part of the mandrel is out of my way. And then with my fingers, and you can do this with another pair of pliers if that's easier for you, especially if this wire is shorter. It's hard to grasp with your fingers, but this one is long enough. So with my fingers, I'm going to fold this wire under the under this mandrel to the other side, and then you can see I have a nice angle here, and that's going to form a nice loop at the top of my bead. So then I'm going to come in with my cutters, and I'm going to get up close and snip the excess away. And then with my chain nose pliers again, I'm going to come in and straighten that out and close it. And there I have a nice finished simple loop on the top of my bead. So this makes a sweet little dangle, and I want this dangle to sit underneath another portion of the earrings, a larger pearl. And so this time I'm going to use an eye pin. This one has the loop on the end, like we saw before. I'm going to open up that loop with my chain nose pliers by just twisting it open to the side. You don't want to open this way with the wire. You want to keep that loop shape the way it comes. So you just want to twist that open, and then I'm going to attach my dangle onto the loop and then close it. So you can see it makes a wonderful little drop. Then I'm going to add my next focal. So I have a pretty bicone and a pearl and another bicone. And I'm going to make another simple loop on the top of this bicone. So again, I'm just folding that over with my fingernail so it makes a nice bend. Coming in from behind with my round nose pliers to the approximate size that I want that loop, folding it over till it bumps into the bead, and then turning my pliers so that that mandrel is now out of the way, and then continuing that fold so that it makes that nice crisp angle. Then come in again with the cutters, and you want to hang on to this the portion that you're going to be cutting away, because those can really fly. You don't want to get a piece of wire in your eye. And then I'm going to come in with the chain nose pliers again and just tighten up and close that loop. So there we have the decorative portion of the earring. And then on some ear wires, the ear wire loop itself opens like the eye pins. In some cases they're closed. In this case it's open. I'm going to go ahead and open this ear wire and then hook my loop onto the loop of the ear wire and then close it. And there you have the finished earring. If that had a closed loop, you could then open the simple loop and attach that to the closed loop of the ear wire. And that's one of the beauty parts of a simple loop, is that you can open and close them. So, and then we have the little rubber clutches, which just give you added security on an ear wire, and those just push on, and then you can slide that up to the back of your ear, and then they hold really well. And so there's the finished earring, and it has the fun movement. The loops and connections that you make this possible. If this was all one wire, then it would be a long piece that wouldn't have much movement. So that's why doing them in multiple pieces like this and connecting them is really fun. So that was simple loops and head pins and eye pins, and now I'm going to show you how to use a jump ring. This is an open jump ring, and to open it, we're going to grab one side. The opening is right up here at the top. I'm going to grab one side with one pair of chain nose pliers, And then I'm going to use a second pair and grab to the other side of that opening. And then we're just going to twist open the jump ring. You don't want to pull the opening open and lose your tension and your diameter on your jump ring. You want to keep that intact. And so this twisting to open and close the jump rings is what you want. And here I have a really pretty little drop with a hole in the top. And so I'm just going to insert that onto the jump ring, like so, and then close it again. And so with that, just that real simple twist back to close the jump ring. And you can even give it a little squeeze at the top where the two pieces join. The next part of my earring, I'm going to use the eye pin again. And so I'm going to open that. That same as the jump ring, that same twisting motion, and hook my little dangle on, and then close it. Give it a little squeeze up at the top, so we have a sweet little dangle. And then my beautiful crystal and pearls, or whatever it is that you want to put on your earrings. For the focal. This time I'm going to finish it with a wrapped loop. And so to do that, I'm using the chain nose pliers, and there's different ways to go about this. I like to place the very tip of my chain nose pliers right at the top of the topmost bead, and then push my wire over the top of my pliers for a nice angle. And then this space that my chain nose pliers are making is going to allow me room for the wrap that I'm going to create. So I'm taking my round nose pliers, and again I'm deciding where on that mandrel for what size loop I want to make, placing it, and then I'm folding the wire over the top like we did for the simple loop until we bump into the bead, rotating like we did before, and then pulling that wire around for that nice angle. But this time we're going to make the wrap. So I'm going to grab onto that loop, and then I'm going to push this wire around. I'm using my fingernails. It's long enough that I can reach it, but you could grab it with a pair of pliers and pull it around like this if that's what you like or need. But I'm able to just push it until it is snug with the bead that is next to it. You don't want to put so much pressure that you crack your crystal, so you do want to do that with some care. And then with the cutters, I'm going to come in and snip that extra. Ooh, hang on to that snip. So that's why you want to hang on, because you can send that little piece of wire flying and injure yourself or your beading partner. You do want to be careful. And then you can see I have a little end still tucked here, and I am on a crystal, so I again want to do this with some care, but I want to tuck that little end in best I can so it's not sticking out. There we go. And then you can see the loop is off to one side just a little bit. So I'm going to come in with my pliers and just give it a little tweak, and then look at it and make sure it's nice and straight. And so that is a wrap loop. Then same thing on the earring. I'm going to just open up the loop that exists there and then add my earring drop to it. If this were an earring that had a closed loop, then you would actually form that wrapped loop around that loop that exists, and then you have a very secure connection. And so that's how you do the wrap loop. So now I want to touch on some of the reasons why you would choose to make a simple loop versus a wrapped loop, and where you might use jump rings and where you might combine all these things in your pieces of jewelry. For example, this bracelet has many strands, and each one of these little bead links was made with simple loops. There's a simple loop on each end, and then connected like a chain, and then jump rings are used at the end where all these chains come together to connect the links. If you had just connected one of these simple loops to that, you wouldn't have that movement that you want in a bracelet. Things would get caught up, and so using the jump ring here is a good thing. I also used slightly larger jump rings between these crystals to join I actually have two crystals back to back, and so I have a large jump ring that's connecting those crystals together and then to these links. And then here at the end, I've linked several jump rings together to form a chain, and that makes a really nice closure to hook your clasp to. So this particular piece uses a lot of these components and in different sizes for different purposes. This pair of chandelier earrings uses simple loops. You could easily do this with wrap loops, but I chose simple loops because a wrap loop takes up more space. You see a little more hardware, and if you have more hardware between these connections, the beads get further apart. And so I wanted my beads up close and didn't want to see so much hardware. Yet I still wanted all the movement that linking various parts together gives you. So this is a place where you would choose to use simple loops rather than a wrap loop. Then on this piece, we used, you can see, just a whole bunch of fabulous dangles with crystals. And in this case, I chose simple loops again, simply because I was making so many. It would be much faster to make simple loops than wrap loops. And not a problem security-wise, because the gauge of the wire that these head pins are made out of is fairly heavy. And so the loops that they make are very secure and are going to stay closed once you've attached them to your chain. So the simple loops just went much faster and is really sturdy enough for something like this. And then this one, these are all simple loops also. These are tiny little simple loops, really small, fine wire gauge. And again, there's a lot of them. It would take a little more time to do wrap loops, which you certainly can. But in this case, for the lightweight beads that I was using, the finer gauge wire is adequate. So in this particular case, the simple loop is preferable for me. In this earring, I have little dangles attached, and these are attached with wrap loops. So to attach the wrap loop to something closed, before you make that final wrap, you want to insert your wire onto the item that you're wrapping to and get it into the loop, and then form your wrap around the base, and then that secures it to your chain or whatever it is you're using. So nice and secure. You know that these little beads aren't going to go anywhere. On a piece like this is a little larger gauge of wire, and I have several components lined up on one item. And sometimes when you have a bunch of different components, you can get a lot of slack amongst the pieces if you just use a simple loop. And you certainly can, but in this case I chose to do a wrap loop because then in the process of forming that coil, it just tightens all those pieces up together and keeps them nice and solid, and cuts out the slack. You do want to take care that you don't over tighten and crack any of your beads, but again, really secure and makes a nice sturdy piece. And then in this piece also, same thing. I have several different components here linked together on this pin, and so I chose a wrapped loop. It's also a finer wire, and because of the weight of the bead that I have, and then all the chain and dangles, for the weight of this wire, a simple loop wouldn't be quite as secure. So I finished it as a wrap loop, and now I know that that's going to stay where I put it. So I hope all this information was helpful, and you'll experiment with some of these techniques and tools so that you can make your own jewelry.